When Daniel first asked me to visit his family, I hesitated. It wasn't because I didn't love him, I did. In fact, I thought maybe he was the one. We had met 8 months earlier at a sustainability panel in Manhattan. He wasn't loud or flashy, not like the finance bros that swarmed midtown bars. He was quiet, grounded. A software engineer turned off-grid hobbyist. The kind of man who brought fresh herbs from his balcony garden to our third date. But when he said, "You should meet my family. They live out in the countryside, totally unplugged, super traditional," something in me tensed. Traditional? I asked, raising an eyebrow. He smiled. Just old school. You'll see. They're harmless. My mom might be intense, but she means well. That last line should have warned me. But instead, I brushed it off. I told myself I was being judgmental, that city life had made me skeptical of anything slower, simpler. So, I said yes. We left New York on a Friday morning, his old Subaru packed with snacks and a woven basket of gifts I had picked out, a jar of honey from a Brooklyn farmer's market, lavender soap, a hardcover photo book of fall foliage. I was nervous, but I tried to make a good impression. I even wore a flowy skirt and flats, soft, rustic, and approachable. As we drove north, the buildings gave way to trees, then hills, then winding gravel roads. Cell service dropped to one bar, then none. By the time we passed a rusted sign that read "Welcome to Hollow Glen," it felt like we'd crossed into another world. "It's peaceful here, right?" Daniel said. I forced a smile. "It's quiet." His family's house was an old wooden farmhouse tucked between dense trees and overgrown gardens. Wind chimes clinked in the breeze, not the metal kind, but ones made of bones and feathers. My stomach twisted, but I said nothing. Maybe it was art. Maybe they were eco-friendly wind chimes. I was trying to stay open. Then I saw her. Daniel's mother stood barefoot in the middle of the yard, wearing a long crimson robe. Her salt and pepper hair flowed loosely down her back. She wasn't smiling. Around her feet were symbols drawn in white ash, spirals, triangles, and what looked like runes. Beside them, arranged neatly in a circle, were animal skulls and feathers, their hollow eye sockets pointed toward the center. Daniel stepped out of the car casually and waved. "Hey, Mom." She raised one hand solemnly. "The spirits told me you were coming early." He turned to me. "Come on, Sam. She won't bite." I froze. This wasn't quirky. This wasn't farm life or old-school values. This was something else. Something colder. Something spiritual in the way that makes your skin prickle. But I followed Daniel. Because I loved him. Because I wanted to believe there was a rational explanation. Because walking away in that moment would have seemed rude, dramatic, ungrateful. His mother stepped forward, her eyes scanning me like she was trying to read something hidden beneath my skin. She dipped her fingers into a small clay bowl of ash and smudged it onto my forehead before I could stop her. "You carry confusion," she whispered. "But we will clear it." I stood there, stunned. Daniel just smiled and took my hand. As he led me toward the house, I whispered, "What was that?" He chuckled. "It's her way of saying hello." But my instincts were already screaming. And I hadn't even stepped through the door yet. From the outside, the farmhouse looked like something out of a forgotten century, all weather-beaten wood, narrow windows, and a porch sagging slightly under the weight of time. Wind chimes tinkled again as we stepped up, and I realized they weren't just made of feathers and bones. Some of them looked like they had been carved from teeth. Inside, it smelled of burning herbs, damp earth, and something sweet, like honey gone sour. Daniel seemed perfectly at ease. He dropped his bag by the coat rack, kissed his mother on the cheek again, and slipped off his shoes. "Sam, you want a tour?" But I wasn't ready for a tour. I was still frozen from the greeting in the yard. That strange ash mark still tingled on my skin like it hadn't dried. I brushed it off when no one was looking. The interior of the house was dimly lit, despite it being afternoon. Thick curtains were drawn over the windows, and the lights inside came from candles, not electric ones, but real flames, set in old lanterns or hanging glass bowls. They flickered and cast shadows on the walls, which were covered in paintings of eyes, strange sigils, and wood carvings of animals in pain. I told myself it was just folk art. That's what Daniel called it when I asked. It's a mix of Celtic and Norse influences, he said with a grin. My mom's really into ancestral traditions. It's beautiful, right? Beautiful wasn't the word I would have used. We moved through the rooms. The living room had no TV, no computer, no microwave. Just books, hundreds of them, many handwritten or bound in cracked leather with faded titles like The Body Knows the Spirit and Bloodlines of Light. Some were in languages I couldn't even identify. I glanced at a worn photo frame on the mantel. Daniel was younger, maybe 20, standing in front of what looked like a massive bonfire, with a circle of robed people behind him. Everyone was holding hands. Daniel was smiling. Was this some kind of summer festival? I asked. He looked at it and shrugged. Solstice gathering. It's like a family reunion. You'll get used to it. I wasn't sure I wanted to. Later, I met the rest of the family, or as Daniel called them, the circle. His aunt, his uncle, his cousins, all dressed plainly, speaking in clipped tones, with eyes that lingered a little too long. Everyone kept referring to me as the outsider. Always with a smile, but it didn't feel kind. Daniel's mother, who everyone called Mydra, prepared dinner, thick root stew, raw honeycomb, and what she claimed was wild forest meat. I didn't ask what animal. I couldn't bring myself to know. During dinner, there was no small talk. Instead, Mydra led a chant before we could eat, pressing her fingers to each of our foreheads and muttering a blessing in a language I didn't recognize. When she touched me, she hesitated. Her eyes fluttered closed and she whispered, "The veil around you is heavy." Everyone else bowed their heads. I sat there, stunned, my spoon still in midair. Daniel didn't say a word. He just ate. Afterward, Mydra asked if she could read me. I thought she meant tarot or maybe a palm reading, but she pulled out a bowl of water, a bone pendant, and a small blade. "That won't be necessary," I said, trying to smile. She looked disappointed, not angry, but mournful. Like I'd just missed a crucial opportunity to save myself. That night, I lay awake in Daniel's childhood bedroom. The bed was stiff, and the ceiling above had carvings etched directly into the wood, protective sigils, he said. There were feathers hanging from the corners of the room, and a jar of what looked like fingernails on the shelf. "Why didn't you tell me it was like this?" I finally whispered to Daniel as he climbed into bed beside me. "I didn't think it mattered," he said. "You said you liked nature." "This is just nature with a little spirit." I stared at him. "There are skulls in your front yard, Daniel." He sighed. "They're symbolic. You're just not used to it yet." I turned away from him, heart pounding. At 3 a.m., I woke up to drums in the distance. Slow, rhythmic, echoing across the hills like something ancient calling home. I crept to the window. In the clearing beyond the barn, I saw silhouettes moving, dancing, in a circle around a burning effigy. They wore robes. Some held staffs. One woman held a bowl high above her head and let its contents spill into the fire. Daniel wasn't in bed beside me anymore. The moment I saw the bed was empty, my blood went cold. Where was Daniel? The drums outside beat in slow, steady pulses, like a second heartbeat that didn't belong to me. My breath caught as I watched the figures move in the clearing, their shadows stretching long across the trees, illuminated by the orange glow of the fire. There were at least a dozen of them, all in red robes like Mydra had worn, and they were chanting now, low, guttural sounds that pulsed in the air. I backed away from the window, pulse hammering in my throat. My mouth was dry. My thoughts raced. Was this real? Was I hallucinating? But the smell of burning sage and smoke wafting in from the cracks in the window said otherwise. I pulled on my sweater and slid on my sneakers. Every instinct in me said run, but I couldn't leave without knowing where Daniel was. Not yet. I crept down the hallway, the old wooden floor groaning under my steps. The house was utterly silent inside, which only made the noise outside feel louder. As I passed the kitchen, I saw it, a narrow back door, slightly ajar. I slipped out. The cold hit me first, sharp and biting in the night air. Then the chanting grew louder. I followed the sound, keeping to the tree line. Branches scratched my arms, and twigs snapped under my feet, but no one turned toward me. As I drew closer to the clearing, I crouched low behind a fallen log, barely breathing. And that's when I saw him. Daniel stood in the center of the circle. Shirtless. His torso was painted with symbols, circles, crosses, and something that looked disturbingly like an eye on his chest. Mydra stood across from him, holding a bowl filled with dark liquid. Her eyes were closed, her voice rising in tempo. A young woman stepped forward from the circle, holding what looked like a dead bird in both hands. She placed it at Daniel's feet and bowed. Then Mydra dipped her fingers into the bowl and touched Daniel's forehead. He flinched, but didn't step away. I covered my mouth to keep from crying out. They were performing some kind of ritual initiation. Mydra began speaking louder, faster. Then everyone in the circle echoed her in a strange call-and response. The fire cracked, sparks flying upward like fireflies escaping hell. Then the others began to dance, slow, winding movements that reminded me of snakes. One man dropped to the ground and began convulsing. Another woman screamed, but no one looked alarmed. In fact, they smiled. I couldn't take it anymore. I turned to run and snapped a branch underfoot. Everything stopped. The drums. The chants. The dancing. Dozens of faces turned toward the trees. Toward me. My heart leapt to my throat. I didn't wait. I ran. I didn't care about the twigs scratching my face or the thorns tearing at my legs. I just ran. My breath was ragged, my chest on fire. I could hear voices behind me now, yelling, not in English, but in that same strange language they'd been chanting. I burst through the trees and stumbled up the porch steps. The front door was locked. I pounded on it, screaming for help, for anyone, though I wasn't sure who I thought would save me. Then the door creaked open. Mydra stood there. Calm. Smiling. You shouldn't have watched, she said. I shoved past her, slamming the door behind me. I didn't stop running until I reached the bedroom, locked the door, and collapsed against it. Moments later, Daniel returned. He knocked once, gently. Sam, he said. It's not what you think. I didn't answer. It's just part of who we are. My family, we believe in balance. Cleansing. You're overreacting. I stared at the door, shaking. You let me come here. You let me sleep here. You knew what was going to happen. I wanted you to understand me, he said. But maybe you're not ready yet. Not ready? What was I supposed to be ready for? Possession? Sacrifice? I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the corner of the room, clutching the car keys, my back against the wall. And when the sun rose, I made my decision. At the first light of dawn, I was already dressed. I had never felt time move so slowly. Every creak of the old house made my chest tighten. I didn't know if they were still asleep, or if they were all awake, watching me, waiting for my next move. I peeked through the blinds. The clearing was empty now. The fire was out, just a pile of gray ash and scorched wood. No drums. No robes. Just a heavy, unnatural silence. I grabbed my overnight bag, which I had packed hours earlier, and tucked the car keys into the sleeve of my jacket. I crept toward the front door, heart thudding so hard I was afraid it would give me away. But as I reached for the knob, a voice floated from the kitchen. "Leaving so soon?" I turned. Mydra stood there, holding a teacup. Her robe was replaced by a simple cotton dress, but she still wore that calm, unsettling smile. The one that said she knew everything I was about to do, and maybe more. I have work," I stammered. "Back in the city." I didn't want to wake anyone. "You should eat first," she said, gesturing to the table. "You'll need your strength." I shook my head, stepping back. "I'm fine." Her smile didn't waver, but her eyes turned cold. "You know, most people come here for healing. For truth. But you? You came with judgment in your heart." "I came with Daniel," I said firmly. "And I never agreed to any of what happened last night." She tilted her head. "Sometimes, the ones who resist the hardest are the ones who need the fire most." The hallway creaked behind me. I spun around. Daniel was there. He looked conflicted. His face was softer now, the fierce intensity from last night gone. "Sam. Don't go like this. You let them drag you into that," I said, my voice shaking. "You let them mark you. You didn't even try to explain." "I tried," he said. "But you wouldn't have listened. You didn't even warn me." His hand reached for mine. "It's not evil. It's old. It's sacred." I yanked my hand back. "It's insane, Daniel." He flinched, as if I'd slapped him. "I can't be with someone who hides this part of themselves until it's too late," I whispered. "I can't be part of this. I won't." I turned, grabbed the door handle, and yanked it open, only to find two of his cousins standing on the porch. One was holding a basket of herbs. The other had a walking stick in her hand. "Oh," she said coolly, "we thought you might try to leave." I slammed the door shut. "You said I was free to go," I snapped at Daniel. "You are," he said slowly, "but Mydra believes it's dangerous. For you to leave without being cleansed." I took a step back. "I'm not playing this game. Move." I turned toward the kitchen, the back door. But Mydra was already there, standing in front of it. The only other exit led through the living room, toward the sliding glass door that opened to the back fields. I ran. I shoved past Daniel, grabbed the door handle, and yanked it open, sunlight pouring in. But before I could step outside, someone grabbed my arm. It was Daniel. "Please," he said, gripping me. "Don't make this harder than it has to be." I shoved him off with all the strength I had, breaking free. I ran barefoot across the backyard, sprinting toward the gravel driveway where Daniel's car was parked. Thank God I still had the keys. But as I reached the car, I saw it. The tires were slashed. All four of them. I froze, the keys dangling uselessly in my hand. "You shouldn't have watched the ceremony," came Mydra's voice behind me. "Now the spirits are unsettled." I turned slowly, breathing hard. "You don't need to fight this," she said gently. "We can help you understand. You're afraid. But only because you've been lied to your whole life. This world? The one you're clinging to? It's not real. Not like this is." Daniel stood behind her now, eyes downcast. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "But you saw too much. And if you leave now, you might bring harm to all of us." "I won't tell anyone," I whispered. "I swear to you. Just let me go." Mydra tilted her head, then looked at Daniel. "You must make the choice," she said to him. "Is she one of us, or will she be your sacrifice?" My breath caught in my throat. "Your sacrifice?" The words hung in the air like smoke, heavy and inescapable. Daniel wouldn't meet my eyes. His hands trembled slightly by his sides. Daniel, I said, slowly backing toward the car even though the tires were useless. Tell me this isn't real. Tell me she's bluffing. But his silence told me everything I needed to know. I didn't want it to come to this, he muttered. But you don't understand what this place means. What it costs to keep balance. We don't hurt people. We just restore harmony when it's disturbed. I disturbed it? I snapped, heart racing. By what? Not chanting? Not letting your mother smear blood on my forehead? Mydra stepped closer, her voice calm and coaxing. When someone walks through sacred ground with doubt in their heart, they leave cracks behind. Pain leaks through those cracks. Fear. Sickness. Division. You've brought that energy here. You're insane, I whispered. All of you. Suddenly, Mydra reached into her sleeve and pulled out a curved ceremonial blade. The edge was dull but stained, the handle wrapped in red cloth and carved with symbols I couldn't recognize. She held it like an offering, not a threat. But in her eyes, I saw no hesitation. We can still cleanse you, she said. You don't have to suffer. Just let go. I turned to Daniel, my voice raw. Please. You love me. You said you loved me. His jaw clenched. For a moment, I saw the man I met in Manhattan. The one who bought me sunflower seeds when I was stressed and stayed up all night helping me paint my apartment. But now, that man was buried beneath layers of crimson belief and rotted loyalty. I do love you, he said. Which is why I can't let you leave like this. That was when I ran. Not toward the house. Not toward the car. But into the woods. Branches slapped my face. Thorns tore my arms. But I didn't stop. I heard voices behind me, Daniel's, Mydra's, others, calling out, not in English, but in that strange chanting language. They didn't run. They followed. As if they were letting the woods do their work for them. I tripped once, twice, but kept going. My legs burned. My lungs screamed. Finally, I spotted it, the main road, just beyond a crumbling fence and a ditch. I didn't think. I leapt the fence, rolled down the hill, and burst onto the pavement barefoot and sobbing. And then, like a miracle, headlights. A pickup truck. I threw myself into the road, waving my arms like a madwoman. The driver slammed the brakes, rolled down the window, and shouted, Jesus. Are you all right? No, I gasped. Please. Drive. Please. Just drive. He didn't ask questions. He opened the door. I jumped in, and the moment we pulled away, I looked back. Daniel stood at the edge of the trees, half hidden in shadow, just watching. No anger. No chasing. Just that same unreadable expression. The cult didn't need to kill me. They'd already taken something. It took weeks before I could sleep again. I filed a police report, but when they investigated, the farmhouse was empty. No robes. No bones. No chanting. No Mydra. It was like they'd vanished. Daniel never contacted me again. I changed my number. I moved apartments. I saw a therapist. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still watching. Waiting. Like a crack had indeed been left open inside me. Sometimes, I dream of the drums. Of the fire. Of Daniel standing in tea.